My son was an absolutely wonderful person. He was just 22 when he took his own life, and just shortly before his 23rd birthday, he had friends all around the world. He was incredibly popular. He'd gone through life enjoying all sorts of achievements, and he'd had a gap year where he travelled around the world. He
taught English in China, hadn't he?
Yes, he graduated from UCL 6 months before he died, and he got a first there in history. So I want to, tell you a little bit about him as a person, because I think
he doesn't fit the classic model. Because I read a background of your son. He was, as you rightly say, a stunningly impressive student. He was fluent in French, German and Spanish. He had a wide circle of friends. He's obviously got a loving family. Yeah. Normally you think of these poor individuals as loners who just don't get on in life. This is not the case with your young son.
That's exactly right. And I think that whole myth about the classic stereotypical person that would take their lives needs to be sort of blown wide open, because one of the things we found is that a lot of young men in particular, and it is young men, take their own lives, and it could be for a number of reasons. It may be part of the pressure of success. This is one of the things I'm particularly concerned about, because I've been overwhelmed with love and support, and in particular by friends of Oliver who again are all that similar type. They've done well, they've achieved a lot, they've travelled the world, and they feel almost, I imagine, like Oliver did, the expectations on them were so great because they'd already had a lot of success and a lot of pressure. And that's why we formed Olly's Future.
Tell us a bit about Olly's Future.
Sure.
And that's a card. May I take that card?
Yes, of course. This is our a postcard that we put out. Well, it's an organisation because so many people got together and raised an awful lot of money. A crowdfunding page was set up by one of his friends, Rory, and I was overwhelmed with all this money, awash with money.
Right.
And I thought, goodness, people wanted to do something. They felt so...
The words that shoot out at me here, I can call you Anne, I'm sure.
Yeah, sure.
Train in suicide awareness and prevention.
Yes,
how do you train in that? How, you must have, and I'm a parent as well, so I'll trick you. You must have racked your brains thinking, was there something I missed? Was there a sign I should have picked up? And it must have been hell you've been through.
Yeah, it has been, Nick. Thank you for acknowledging that. There are two reasons that Oliver took his life. I mean, there are obviously other contributory factors, but one of them, I think, was that pressure of success. Yes. The other one was he was working, as you say, as a teacher with the British Council in Shanghai.
Yes.
Now, I have a lot of grave concerns about how the British Council runs their graduate schemes over there, because he did become isolated. He was posted. He was someone who'd lived in London for 4 years, had such a social life. He was then posted on his own, and I think that isolation triggered some depression.
Just before I bring someone from Papyrus into this, how do you train in suicide awareness and prevention?
Yes, sure. So with this money that we've raised, I felt the best thing was to involve an organisation that could help teach the skills, equip other people with the skills. So we've used the 30,000 to date for training.
Me.
Yes, and 10,000 actually of that was given to Papyrus.
Yes.
Specifically to be spent at UCL, the university that Oliver went to.
Well, let's bring Papyrus. I'll come back to you for a final, but let's bring Papyrus. You acknowledge that. Nina Clarke is Deputy Chief Executive, and thank you. You've come along the studio as well. Let's broaden this out a little. Good morning to you. Let's broaden this out. For mums and dads listening now who are concerned enough about their teenage sons and daughters possibly going for Freshers' Week or returning, what would your advice be?
Well, I would advise them to stay in good touch with their young person, because they are the ones that know what their young person is like. And unfortunately, many universities, when young people move to them, these are massive institutions, and they find it really difficult. I remember when my sons went,
part of it is they start their own lives. Yes. They don't want necessarily to talk to dad every Saturday or whatever it might be.
Yes, but that transition can be very difficult for some. Some people relish in it and flourish in it, but also there's an expectation that they're going to flourish. And what if they don't? And and they find sometimes that they can't really reach back home because they're expected to do well, and staying in touch with them, and also for the universities to step up to the challenge of keeping that conversation open. Now, Papyrus has developed a Suicide Safe Universities Guide together with Universities UK,
right.
and it's a printed document that's available. It's free to download, and it was shared with all the Vice-Chancellors that attended the Universities UK conference
so
last
mum or dad
week.
could get that if they get
They
it.
can,
Okay,
absolutely.
we'll give details in a moment how to do that. Yeah, on you do.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that guide, you asked, how do you educate people? How do you train people?
Suicide prevention and awareness that Anne was talking about. Yeah,
that's right. Yes. Well, this guide basically tells the university how to go about that. The awareness raising that has to happen really is all about knowing how common it is to have suicidal thoughts. Some people simply, when they feel overwhelmed, would tend to feel that way. Others don't. And by acknowledging that it's common to feel that way, and that most who feel that way don't really want to die, they just need an outlet for the pressure and the anxiety and fear that they're feeling about life. And the guide is basically divided into prevention, intervention and postvention. Those are key activities that a university has to take on. Prevention
how aware are universities? I'm sorry to talk over you. It's only because we've got a short amount of time.
Absolutely.
I do, but how good or how aware universities are, would you say they are?
Well, I would say that prevention is getting better. Prevention is about mental health awareness and making sure that, young people know that there is support. Intervention, not very good. Once a person flags that they really are struggling, everybody wants to help, but nobody knows how to. Now, that's where Papyrus comes in, because we know how to do that. And so anybody who's concerned can Google Papyrus or call our helpline. They can get support for themselves or for somebody that they care about.
Well, we're going to give all details of Papyrus and indeed for Olly's future. If I can hold on to this card, they'll all be available on the LBC website. Before I bring Anne back into the conversation, final question for you, if I may, Nina. These statistics that I started our conversation with, horrific, a 56% rise in 10 years. I imagine no two cases are the same, no two suicides are ever the same. They've all got their set of issues. But what lies behind this increase, would you say, broadly?
So generally we find from the calls to our helpline that there are sort of three groups of things that lead to suicidal thoughts in young people. Often some form of pressure.
Is this the pressure of success that
it could be the pressure of success.
Anne was talking about,
It could be debt. It could be academic pressure or other pressure to perform in a certain way. It could be, and another group of factors is loss, some form of loss, for example, the fact that they've lost their home community, or that they may have lost someone to suicide. That's a huge risk factor. Or they may have lost a friend or a relationship that's gone wrong.
And what about if, the boy goes to one university and the girl goes to another, the other, or the two boys, but you know what I'm saying, the partner goes to the other end of the country.
Yes.
A massive issue,
huge loss there. And finally, trauma. Many of the people that call us are struggling with historic trauma and don't know how to cope with it.
Yes.
And all these things, like you're saying, Nick, are individual journeys that bring these people to the point of despair. So every suicide, unfortunately, is individual. But at least 95 young people died by suicide in the last academic year, and that's almost 2 a week. Many universities are in denial about this. We know that some don't even contact the parents or the friends of the person that died. It's simply ignorance, Nick. They don't know how to go about it.
Finally, with you, Nina, thank you. Finally, with you, Anne, this is all very personal. It's all very well me talking about it as a journalist, and with the greatest respect to the organisation, but for you, it's reality. Is there anything, when you look back, and you must have asked yourself this, is there anything you should have done differently? Would you tell any mums or dads listening now what they might be doing?
I think with Oliver's case, the first time he actually said he really felt as though something had switched in his head was December the 30th. Now, he died on...
Is that 2016?
2016.
Yeah, okay.
He died 5 weeks later,
right,
on February the 14th.
Right.
I think the fact that he had changed because of feeling depressed and then anxious about his future, it had taken such a short time. It was 5 weeks.
Yes.
I don't think any of the friends that he spoke to, and he was speaking to people, and and myself, my husband, and my other son, could process the speed at which he was going rapidly down. The other point I want to make is that he was given an antidepressant over the phone. He wasn't actually seen by the doctor.
Goodness.
So he wasn't, I think he was failed by the British Council and the National Health Service. And I want to really look into both of those areas. But so the speed with which the change came about meant that I mean, you are tied up with so much
Of
guilt.
course.
But I think none of us could have prepared for the almighty shock of losing someone who had been a leading light, an inspiration,
Yes.
so much charisma, and he's left a massive hole in so many lives, and that's why we're doing Olly's Future.
Well,
That's
if I
why
could-
we're raising money to train others. And at UCL, we've actually we're running training courses through Papyrus for all their staff, so that the professors, the teachers are equipped.
Well,